Padam Varadam Mataram Vande Mataram Koti Koti Kantha Kala Kala Ninada Karale Koti Koti Bhujai Dhita Khara Kharavale Abala Kanumarat Bole Bahubala Namami Tarini Vipudala Varini Mataram Vande Mataram Tumi Vidya Tumi Dharma Tumi Ridhi Tumi Marma Tvam hi prana sharire Bahute Tumi ma Shakti Hridaye Tumi ma Bhakti Tumaroi Pratima Gadi Mandire Mandire Vande Mataram Tvam hi Durga Dasha Praharana Dharini Kamala Kamala Dala Viharini Vani Vidya Daini Namami Tvam Namami Kamala Mamala Atula Sujala Supala Mataram Vande Mataram Shamalam Saralam Susmitam Bhushitam Dharanim Dharanim Mataram Vande Mataram Vande Mataram
भारत माता की जय।
Thank you all for your cooperation. Well, Top League Training and Business Consulting is a visionary organization founded in January 2020 with a strong 40-member team who come from varied industries and have experience in various Indian and multinational companies. As many of you are aware, we have two knowledge sharing platforms, one for adults and one for the children. We also have the world's best trainers competition, which is going on, the round 3 of which is going to commence on the 1st of July. The prime aim of Top League is to nurture the community and hence these projects. Now, this Pay What You Want series, master classes given by Mr. Arun and others from the community as well, helps in funding the world's best trainers and the Koa Ayuvinus Ingenio platform for the children. This program today is the 4th in the series of Mr. Arun's Pay What You Want masterclasses. And those of you who have attended the other 3, I'm sure you have benefited immensely, which was very evident from the testimonials that we received. Mr. Arun is also now talking to all of us regularly through his Talk to Arun series of his YouTube channel. I would request you all to please watch his series number 3 right now to learn various techniques to become a master trainer. You may watch series 1 and 2 from his YouTube channel later. The link will be provided in the chat box. I will just play the link series 3 now for you.
Good evening, friends. Before the pandemic struck, when people attended classroom courses, 75% of the people completed the courses. But when the same courses were offered online, only 7% completed it. Why? Why were people not interested or motivated to complete their course when they joined of their own accord and they had paid for it? And they knew that this training will benefit them. Let us try to understand the reason for this abnormal drop from 75 to 7%. That means 93 people out of every 100 who joined online classes did not complete it. Earlier, 99% of all training was classroom based. So trainers also knew how to train only in the classroom. When they applied the same principles for online training, it totally failed to impress the trainees and they never completed the course. In keeping with the need of the classroom training, most train-the-trainer courses concentrated on helping people develop confidence and practice speaking in front of a crowd, much like a public speaking class. The ability to interact and strike a personal chord with the participant was given importance. Trainers focused a lot on understanding and developing relationship and creating a presence among people. Technical aspects like conceptualization, structuring, instructional design, content architecture, narrative weave, and many more like this were not given much importance. Another aspect that was given importance during these train the trainer courses to develop trainers was how to work as a freelance trainer under various companies who used to give these people training assignments. They were also taught how to sell themselves to these agencies and corporates. Very little importance, if any, was given to becoming an independent master trainer because online opportunities had not matured. The closest estimate before the pandemic says that there were about 1 lakh of trainers in India who had taken training in various places, in various train-the-trainer courses, and all of them were battling it out for a measly $1 billion market as compared to $394 billion of the worldwide market. As per Glassdoor, which is the preferred destination for professionals seeking information on employment and remuneration, a master trainer in New York earns $4,500 to $8,000 per month. That is approximately 3.6 to 6 lakhs per month, while the Indian counterpart earns a measly 15,000 rupees per month, and that too if he is lucky. That is the reason, friends, why very few Indian trainers, in spite of their caliber and ability, made training their full-time profession because of the poor returns. But today, the pandemic has opened up the world of training and taken everything online. Overnight, this $1 billion market of India has embraced the 394 world market, which is growing at 21%, because boundaries have dissolved. On the online market, there are no boundaries. What is more, the playing field has been leveled for everyone. Yesterday's experts are also today's novices. And everyone who is desiring a career in training will have to unlearn and relearn the world of online training to build a career. Come friends, join me in my episode, Talk to Arun 4, to understand the skill sets that you need to acquire and upskill yourself. I will offer you my knowledge, experience and expertise as a successful online master trainer. Are you ready to step out with your best foot forward and leverage the opportunity which is available and earn millions? All that is required from your side is the investment of a commitment to learn and become a fantastic online master trainer. I will look forward to meeting you again on episode number 4 of Talk to Arun. Thank you.
I'm sure you all liked it, and definitely this is going to be so much informative and useful for everyone here. So please do watch the series 1 and 2 and the forthcoming series also. So we will be sharing the YouTube channel link in the chat box shortly. Well, by now I'm sure you all know Mr. Arun and he needs no introduction yet. For the benefit of those who may be new here today, let me briefly introduce Mr. Arun. Mr. Arun comes with a rich corporate experience of more than 4 decades, of which close to 23 years He has been the CEO of several leading companies. Mr. Arun has built and managed several organizations in the face of significant regulatory, technological, and industrial change. Over the last 30 years, he has conducted over 70 management development workshops for professionals from a multitude of industries, ranging from pharma to manufacturing and whatnot. Some of his signature programs are team management, performance enhancement, employee engagement, creativity, innovation, and design thinking, and the list goes longer than what I've just told you. Today, we are going to witness a unique masterclass on the topic of anatomy of storytelling from the master himself. I'm immensely happy to introduce to you the Managing Director of Top League Training and Business Consulting Private Limited, Mr. Arun Subramanian. Welcome, Mr. Arun, and please enlighten us all with your anatomy of storytelling.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Fine
Good
morning.
morning.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Very good
morning, sir. Good morning.
The
Good
picture
morning.
you see in front of you is that of Joseph Rudyard Kipling. I think we all know him very well.
Good morning,
He
sir.
is. Am I audible?
Very much, very much.
Sir.
Yes, yes.
Oh, sir.
Yes.
The picture you see in front of you is that of Joseph Rudyard Kipling, an English journalist, short story writer, poet, and novelist. He was born in India, and India was his setting. You know, he is the author of the famous Jungle Book and The Man Who Would Be King. He was also a pathological gambler. He was once asked a question by a reporter. He was asked, what is the difference between a man and a boy? What a question to ask. What is the difference between a man and a boy? Kipling smiled, said, when with the toss of a dice, you lose every possession of yours, you lose everything, even the shirt off your back. Get up, dust the seat of your pants, and say, okay, let's start all over again. Then you are a man, otherwise you are still a boy. My dear friends, that brings me to the question, what is the difference between story narration and storytelling? Can any one of you tell me? Please unmute and tell me, just three people, what is the difference between story narration and storytelling?
Storytelling is just Zem Chidambaram, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Storytelling is just describing. Narration is to give more life to it, enact the characters as the author wants it, the different roles to be played. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would like to say that storytelling is developing your own, what is it called, imagination and that of the hearer.
And what is narration?
Narration is mentioning it, talking about it, giving the story in such a way that people's imagination gets fired up.
Okay.
Interest develops.
Hello.
Okay. Yes.
Can I say?
Yes, please. Who is it?
Nirmala Prabhu. I'm Nirmala
Yes.
Prabhu.
Please tell me.
Storytelling is putting all your self into the story and telling it a story which has emotions. Narration is just narrating it without. I mean, you have not written the story; it is written by someone else, and you're just narrating it.
Excellent. Thank you. Now we will move on.
Can I come?
You see, when I was faced with the task of defining the anatomy of storytelling, I asked myself, what if storytelling is not just about telling a story and is much, much more important? Excuse me, I think there is some noise. Just a minute. Huh? Yeah. When I was faced with the task of defining the anatomy of storytelling, I asked myself, what if storytelling is not just about telling a story, but much, much more important? You see, after all, stories have been coming down to us through ages. Since the earliest memories, we know that people have been telling stories. I suspected that it is closely associated with evolution of mankind, and boom, there, I found myself right in front of fire. Friends, can you tell me what has fire got to do with evolution and storytelling? Can any one of you guess?
It all started there only, sir. Around the fire.
Who is that?
Sir, Sanjay here. Sorry.
How? How it all started?
Because when like people gathered around in the night time when the stories started flowing. In the night time, because there was no other, nothing else to do before you sleep. So you all gather together and then you tell stories. So that is how it started.
And how is it connected to evolution?
Because fire came first. One of the primary inventions, discoveries.
Okay. Anyone else would like to try?
Sir, can I?
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, the whole day, the man goes for hunting and the rest of the people are at the home. In the evening, after having a dinner or a thing, they make the fireplace and tell about what all happened on that particular day and what type of animal he faced, how he...
That we have understood, Mr. Suresh. Mr. Sanjay has told the same thing. What I want to know is, how is it linked to evolution? Yes.
Yeah, that is basically, if you look into it, it made the development from the experience that's been shared. Based on the experience that's been shared, people get knowledge and the necessary skills. So they developed over a period of time, and that is how it is the basis of evolution.
Thank you.
Actually, before the language developed, all the non-verbal cues was developed that day. 93% of the non-verbal cues, just to make it more imaginative, more interesting, more engrossing.
Okay. Thank you. 3 people. And then we will keep moving on. Otherwise, we will get stuck here only. 3 and we move on. Anthropologists point to fire as the main trigger which sparked human evolution. There is this report from the National Geographic which says what makes us human is cooking. 1.8 million years ago, when Homo erectus made his appearance, he learned how to access fire for cooking, and within 600,000 years, the brain size had doubled. So cooking was very closely linked to the development of the brain, and the development of the brain is what we mean by evolution. Our thoughts evolved. We started becoming more complex. We started harnessing and harvesting the resources around us. And today we are an evolved human being. And all this was ignited by fire because the Homo erectus harnessed the power of the fire and started cooking. That is not all. Fire also warded off the predators at night, as someone rightly said. And other positive is that if you wanted to live to see the sunrise, fire was instrumental. So lifespan increased. And then what happened? The whole day, as Mr. Suresh and Sanjay ji and the other gentlemen were telling, they were working, and in the evening, they started sharing what all had happened, truly or otherwise, imagined or real, with the people who were there in the tribe. And this was how storytelling started. Even today in the Namibian desert, there are a group of nomads known as the Bushmen who still spend their daytime foraging for nuts and fruits and vegetables in the deserts. But in the night, they all come together and they discuss what has happened in the day. This helps them to build better teams for hunting and, bond together. During the daytime, the conversation is only about 6%, but 81% of the evening conversation around the fire is of telling stories. And one more thing they observed at that time, that not all communicators have the skill to tell a story. Only a few have. When some of them tell, people go off to sleep. They are unable to convey their experience and inspire others. That brings us to the reality. The firelight talk might have started 400,000 years ago, but our brains are still hardwired for story today. But of course, the stakes and the methods have changed. If it was the stone, carvings and discussing what had happened around the fire in the earlier days, today it is the PowerPoint and pitching to investors for giving them money. That is how things have changed. Now, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, there is one more thing we need to understand. According to Princeton University researcher Yuri Hansen, what happens when a story is told is very, very unique. There is a neurocoupling which happens between the minds of the people. And this neurocoupling is responsible for stories. But centuries back, years back, this gentleman, do you recognize him? He is the first historian, recognized historian, Leopold von Ranke, the most respected historian in history. And now you will ask me, once it was fire, now what has history got to do with stories? Can anyone tell me what history has got to do with stories?
I mean, history is the first form of...
History is the record of stories.
Okay.
History has inspired.
He is the one who gave the theory and practice of history. He said that there are three kinds of history. Three kinds of history, not one, but three kinds of history. The first is the actual event, the details of which are lost forever. Because when something is happening, no one knows that it will be needed to be recorded for later use. So the thing is totally lost. The second is the reconstruction of events after it has happened. When you feel that it might have a relevance, you start reconstructing the events. And this is a very painstaking task. You have to research, verify, and then measure the sources, their credibility, and then reconstruct the event. And finally, the history put in the books by the people in power. It is nothing but to promote a particular viewpoint that this history is created. In other words, history is almost always untrue. It serves the purpose of the powerful few in fooling the powerless many. That is what history, he says, is. That brings us to the most important aspect of storytelling. If stories are history, recollected from the past and told, if stories pertain to the future, it is totally an imagination and bereft of reality, then what is the reality of stories? This is where we come to what I was talking about, Yuri Hansen. But before this, let us see what are the evolutionary steps we have seen till now. Number one, man harnesses the power of fire to cook. Cooking helps the brain size to grow and gives extra time to man. With the extra time available, he starts telling stories. And as he tells stories, he realizes that he will have to cook up stories because the actual event is lost. Reconstructing is a painful process. And the stories which go to being told are those which have a purpose of the teller behind it. He wants to drive those stories with a message. That brings us to the most important aspect. In short, he had to play with reality and how he wanted the listener to interpret it. On the balcony of San Remo apartment building in March 1983, you see Steve Jobs and Scully, John Scully, the then president of PepsiCo, standing. Scully had just then rejected Steve Jobs' offer to lead Apple. Steve Jobs turns to him and suddenly asks him, do you want to sell sugar water all your life? Or do you want to come with me and change the world? What a question to ask. It was a short right below the belt. John Scully is taken aback. And then Steve Jobs goes on to paint the picture of what he intends to do with Apple over a period of time. He paints the entire picture of how Apple is going to change the computer industry. I'm sure you would have understood that John Scully, very, very soon after that, resigned his position in Apple, came and joined Steve Jobs as the president of, he resigned his position in Pepsi and came and joined Steve Jobs in the position of Apple. This is what is called reality distortion. Steve Jobs had defined what story always tells. It distorts reality. And Yuri Hansen also, endorses this. In his 2010 paper published in the Journal of Neuroscience, Princeton University researcher Yuri Hansen told that there is a neurocoupling happening between the listener and the speaker, the teller, the storyteller. And what was unique was that the brains of both these people got excited in the same places at the same time. That means there was a co-creation taking place. When a good story is told, it excites the brain of the listener in the same place from which it leaves the storyteller's brain. This has in fact been measured by cognitive scientists. I will show you two great storytellers, reality distortion field effect. The first is Tim Cook, who has taken Apple even beyond where Steve Jobs left. The International Reality Distortion Field Consortium in November 2013 tested the ability of Tim Cook to impress and influence people to whom he was telling a story, and they found that the range was 24.6 feet. That means all people within the hearing range of 24.6 feet who could see him, there was a neurocoupling taking place between Tim Cook and them. And they tested for Steve Jobs and found it was an amazing 12,083 miles. Steve Jobs could influence people up to the range of 12,083 miles. No wonder Steve Jobs is regarded to be the greatest storyteller of all times. Then this is possible only if you have a deep conviction and you're absolutely certain that what you're telling is right. It is only then that the neurocoupling will take place. Do you want to see a live demonstration of reality distortion field?
Yes, why not?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Yes,
Not a
yes.
question of why not. If you are interested, then I will show you.
Yes.
Definitely, sir. Yes, we are interested.
Yes.
We are
Yes,
already
sir.
we are already neurocoupled with you, sir.
So now let us see. Now let us see how this reality distortion field takes place. Watch this video.
Hello, friends. Podcasts are time efficient, on demand content objects that you can create to talk directly to your audience. They help you deliver your information with a personal touch and form a loyal audience for your content. Let me show you how easy it is to become a podcaster. During my 4-hour program on creating a podcast, I will demonstrate the 4 stages of podcast creation: pre production, production, post production, and distribution of your podcast. Now, this is going to be an experiential program where you will get an opportunity to create a sample episode along with me. So, come, friends, join me on the 13th of June at 10 a.m. I look forward to seeing you there.
So, friends, what do you feel about this storytelling? Here, the author speaks about what the podcast does, what he will offer if you were to attend his course. This comes under the category of educative storytelling. It's good. Narration is good. Fluency is there. Body language is good. Expressions are good. All the Mammalian principles are adhered to. Am I right?
No, I feel the verbal is not clear.
Okay, that could be possibly because of the the Zoom platform.
Our system. Okay, our system.
That could be possible. But don't you think overall it is a fantastic message?
Yeah, the message is carried forward. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm not getting any answer. This
Yes,
a
very
good
much. Yes,
story.
sir, the message is very much clear.
Now let us see. Now let us see how the reality distortion field can be applied to it and what happens to the message.
However good you may be with conceptualizing, designing, and delivering your training programs, your success is going to be to impress your audience and establish yourself as a subject matter expert. So, how are you going to do it? There are various ways to do this. You could do it through multimedia marketing. You could post snippets of your programs on your YouTube channel. You could do this by writing blogs and becoming a thought leader. You could create a community on LinkedIn to share your ideas. You could post regularly on Quora.
Some problem happened?
The video is stuck. Stop.
Yes,
Sorry.
video stopped.
On your area of expertise as well. But
just a minute.
There is one. However good you may be with conceptualizing, designing, and delivering your training programs, your success is going to depend upon your ability to impress your.
Getting freeze.
Intermittent neurodecoupling is taking place.
However good you may be with conceptualizing, designing, and delivering your training programs, your success is going to depend upon your ability to impress your audience and establish yourself as a subject matter expert. So, how are you going to do it? There are various ways to do this. You could do it through multimedia marketing. You could post snippets of your programs on your YouTube channel. You could do this by writing blogs and becoming a thought leader. You could create a community on LinkedIn to share your ideas. You could post regularly on Quora on your area of expertise as well. But there is one other very powerful way by which you can do this. This is through podcasting. Podcasting allows you to talk to your customers directly. Let me show you how easy it is to become a podcaster. My 4-hour program on creating a podcast is all about the intricacies of creating a podcast, publishing it, driving people to it, and creating a community through it. Come, friends, join me on the 13th of June at 10 a.m. I look
The
forward to seeing
same
you.
message, you see how the reality has been distorted? From the offering and the podcast, which was the emphasis in the earlier video, in this video, the emphasis has shifted to the audience and their SME status. It is no more about a podcast. It's all about you. The reality has been totally distorted and your focus has been redirected. If in the earlier video you listened to it, brain might have told there's already lots of work for me. I'm not interested in spending time learning all these new things. But here, the reptilian brain is now able to relate to the need to learning podcasts because that directly affects your, SME status. By repositioning the core interest area as dependent on podcasting, the reality has been distorted. Are you understanding?
Yes, very clear.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Do you see the difference?
Yes, very much.
Yes.
Now, do you remember any time in history when such, reality has been distorted in a very big way for a huge gain? You can't remember?
Many are there, sir.
There are many instances, but I will tell you about the most controversial, most discussed, most debated instance from history, which created a 2.4 billion following. Recognize this person? Do you recognize this person?
Jesus Christ.
Moses.
This is very famous by the Latin name pericope adulterae. Can anyone tell me what it means? This picture signifies pericope adulterae. Here you see Jesus. The people have brought a woman who was caught in adultery in the very act, and they tell him, Moses in the law commanded us that such act should be stoned to death. What do you say, teacher? Jesus picks up a stone, offers to the crowd, and says, the law of Moses have to be followed. Let the man who has never sinned cast the first stone. They all leave one by one. Jesus turns to the woman and says, they have not condemned you, so neither shall I. And here comes the crunch. Go forth and sin no further. The last 6 words show that Jesus was convinced that she had sinned. And the beauty of it is not Jesus who has told this. It is Apostle John who has written about it 40 years after the crucifixion of Jesus. Christianity started being propagated not by Jesus, but by his apostles 40 years later by some records. And by some records, all this happened in 6th and 4th century BC. Between that period, that 100 years after Jesus, it was done. Tell me, my dear friends, who is the real hero here? Jesus, who is supposed to have acted so, or John, who is supposed to have distorted the reality by this narration?
John.
The storyteller.
Storyteller, yeah.
So now you know the difference between story narration and storytelling. Story narration is telling the story as it is. Storytelling is all about structure and strategy. Structure and strategy, my dear friends, will beat delivery hands down any day. You can see the publication from which this picture itself has been taken, an introduction to Gospels, where they say a period of 40 years separates the death of Jesus from telling of the starting of the gospel. And what did people do? History offers us little direct evidence about what exactly happened during those periods. Only thing which is known is that people were going around telling stories. That is the power of story. It was in that 40 years of storytelling by the apostles, and not story narration, but storytelling, which created Christianity, which has got 2.4 billion and still growing today. The largest religion in the world. That is the power of storytelling. And you know what the beauty of it is? Everyone has a story, and our stories all have something in common. We all started from nothing, born helpless, dirty. And when we die, we will again be helpless, nothing to do. And we won't even know we are dead. And everything in between is just a story. People want to hear stories. They want to hear our stories. They want to know where we are from, what we are doing, who we love, and where we are going. And they also want us to hear their story. But the problem starts when we consciously try to tell a story, stand up in front of people. As someone rightly said, the brain starts working the day it is born and stops the moment you stand up to tell a story. You sit down, it restarts. That is the biggest challenge in front of us. But every day we are telling stories. Remember, every second we are telling stories. Then what is this anatomy of storytelling, which we are talking about, for which we have all gathered here today? If everybody is telling stories all the time, then why do we need to understand the anatomy of our storytelling? The anatomy of storytelling is all about converting a good story into a great story. Adding strategy to your story so that it can go and stick to the mind of the people to whom you are telling it, and that is going to be a permanent effect. At the foundation of storytelling, there are three great principles. What are those three principles? Number one, conceptual. Number two, functional. And number three, operational. There are three legs to the conceptual part of the storytelling. The conceptual part of the story tells that you need to understand and work on it. What you need to understand and work on. Can any one of you guess what are the three legs of the conceptual storytelling?
What is the story about?
Theme of the story.
What is the story about?
Okay.
It should be about people, drama, and message.
Okay.
I think it's the objective. What's the objective?
Opening, middle, and ending.
Objective?
If it is your story, relive it when you are telling it. If it is somebody else's story, totally empathize with it. That is the first principle of conceptual. What is the second? Because we are talking about storytelling, great storytelling. We are not talking about story narration. You will have to totally live that moment. It's happening to you. And you are using your words so that the image can be painted in the mind of the people. Remember Steve Jobs? What did he ask? Do you want to sell sugar water throughout your life? And then he showed him a grand vision of what Apple is going to become and told him, do you want to drive this? It was too much for Scully. He knew for the rest of his life, if he did not take this opportunity, he would be asking himself, did I make a mistake? Did I make a mistake? He had created the Zeigarnik effect and put the idea into the head in such a way that unless the loop is closed, John Scully could never have slept anymore in his life. Similarly, you have to live your part. It is happening to you, you live. And if it is happening to someone else and you are telling it, totally empathize, become that person. The second is the difference between written and oral language. Right from our childhood, every information, every story we have through the written only. We read, we write. That is the reason why the nuances of oral language is lost and people find it so difficult. We are very comfortable curling up in the bed and reading a book. Some people are very comfortable in writing, but speaking is a challenge for everyone. Oral language is a challenge for everyone. You don't speak the way you read and write. The oral language is very different. Forget written language. Talk naturally, whatever comes to you. Cuss word, good words, bad word, just use it. Because it is a question of expression. And the third is imagery. The biggest mistake people make in storytelling is they see the scene in their mind and then explain that scene. Don't do that. They should replicate it. The mind uses what is known as internal representations to the five senses. Spill it out. Let it come out in those five senses. Seeing, hearing, feeling, touching, tasting, smelling, each and everything should come out so that the imagery is complete. As you see it, your audience should also see it. These are the three conceptual parts of storytelling. And what are the functional part? We had a program yesterday where, I was discussing with some of our colleagues here about, how that person had spent the entire day, and the 12 hours of the day that person explained to me in 1.5 minutes. That means the entire 12 hours was chaos and the person could find order in only that 1.5 minutes. The person shrank it to 1.5 minutes. Storytelling is about separating the order from the chaos. Life is full of unnecessary events and material. You should know how to chop off all those unnecessary things and only present the barest of facts. Go to the bone of the matter. Don't allow all extraneous things to come, however alluring it may be. Please understand one thing. Storytelling is about the audience, not you. You are telling a story to impress and influence the audience. What you like doesn't matter. What does the audience want? I like Cadbury's, but if I go fishing, I will put a worm in the bait. I will not put a Cadbury's chocolate because the fish does not care for a Cadbury's chocolate. It only cares for the worm. Similarly, it is all about your audience. Remove all the chaos. Bring order. Bring it to its barest, bone. And remember one thing. The human brain is tuned to what next. What in cognitive science is called profluence. The story should keep moving forward. Every step should be a step forward, making the audience think, what next? This is very, very important. All stories must possess a quality called profluence, the quality of forward movement. Shakespeare's tragedies are supposed to be the world's greatest tragedies because both the reader and the character in those dramas, Shakespeare's dramas, like Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Macbeth, they all know what's going to happen. It is the forward movement, the movement of the impending doom, which you cannot stop, which makes the tragedy so painful. As the author said, all paths of glory lead but to the grave. As Nietzsche said, life at its best is a losing proposition. No one has come out of it alive. Similarly, it is all forward movement. Your story should be forward movement. E.M. Forster wrote that a story can only have one merit, and that of making the audience want to know what happens next. What happens next is the only way a story can capture the imagination of the audience. Now we come, my dear friends, to the operational part. It is our reptilian brain which drives us. Nothing else matters. We need to understand that the subconscious cannot differentiate between reality and imagination. Everything which enters into it is reality. The only and only function of the subconscious is to keep you alive. That means what? The first and foremost principle of storytelling is survival. What next? And how does the reptilian brain decide how to keep you alive? By knowing what will happen next. It is constantly asking the question for the last 350 million years, since the time it came from water to land, what will happen next so that I can keep this guy alive? So you are hardwired for what next. And how does it do that? By focus. It removes everything which is unnecessary. If you force the unnecessary on it, it will get distracted. If you want to hold its attention, ensure that the unnecessary is totally removed. The third is emotion. We all think, believe that reason and emotion are polar opposites. It's not so. If it weren't for our emotion, reason wouldn't exist at all. We will see why so. There was only the reptilian brain when it got overloaded because of the growing brain. It passed on a portion of its responsibilities to what started developing as it started growing, which is known as the limbic brain, which is the emotions. When that also got overloaded, the third part came about only 1.5 million years ago, 1.5 to 2 million years ago. And that is the cortex, the cerebral cortex, the point of reason. So the hierarchy is very simple. It starts with the reptilian brain, goes to the emotional brain, then comes to the reason. So you have to ensure that your stories talk through the reptilian brain to the heart. Don't make the mistake of appealing to the brain. The reason, it will not work. It will simply not work. Then we have agenda. Survival being the principal motive of the reptilian brain, it is constantly reading the surrounding and everyone in it, trying to understand what is their motive. Means agenda. So it is interesting to note that agenda often has a negative connotation, implying something decidedly Machiavellian. The truth is, agenda is another word for goal. Why are you driving this story? Because if you are not sure what agenda you are going to fulfill, you will not be able to convey it to them. Because as you are explaining the agenda also, the what next has to kick in. So you need to be totally clear about the agenda. That brings us to the fifth point. What you see in your mind's eye, your audience should see. Visualizing. Don't talk of man, talk of a man. It's easier to visualize and relate to specifics. This is the reason why our ancients, they brought in the concept of Sakar Brahman. Every religion talks of only one God, Nirguna God, Nirakar God, no form, no quality, no character, but to keep us attached and focused on something, they brought characters, they gave qualities, then they made Shiva, then they made Vishnu, then they made Brahma, you have Jesus, you have, what do you call it, Mother Mary. And where even in those religions which do not want to profess this, they still have places of worship like Makkah to which they attach themselves. So all these things, the Sakar root is only to help you visualize so that you will have something to attach yourself to. Images drive the emotions as well as the intellect. This is precisely the why the early man propounded the concept of Sakar Brahman. That brings us to a very, very important aspect in story. Conflict and change. Just imagine, I can see that there are 112 people here in the platform now. 112 people means 112 different thinking. How do I bring them onto the same platform? I create a conflict. The moment the conflict happens, everyone comes on the platform. Some take for, some take against. But everyone have come onto the platform. Now I can drive the change. That is why every story has a conflict. The turning point where the story really starts taking you forward into the message that you want to give to the person. Finally, we come to the most important operational part. Why stories? Why stories at all? Why not something else to do all this? That is an old saying, friends. Good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. The trouble is, bad judgment can be very costly. That is the reason why neuroscientist Richard Restark says we are social creatures. The need to belong is as basic to our survival as our need for food and oxygen. And since it's a very tricky thing, making mistakes and learning, it is always better to learn from the mistakes of others. That's where story comes in. Story helps you live the other person's life and learn from his bad judgments without making them yourself. That is the biggest advantage of story. Whenever a story is told, we relate to it, we get a learning from it, and we use it as a reference point for the future. Remember, the subconscious cannot differentiate between reality and stories. For it, everything is reality. If you read a James Hadley Chase book, if you read an Arthur Haley book, if you read a Frederick Forsyth book, you are living the protagonist there. That means that life has been added to your life. Whatever he does to escape from dangers, now that becomes a repository for your subconscious to use when the time comes. With these three our principles in our mind, let us move on to the next one. What is the structure that the story should have? Very simple. The opening, the body, and the closing. Possibly the most simple slide of this entire program. This is what the structure is. By the way, is it really that simple? How does it transit from the opening to the body? How does it transit from the body to the closing? And what is the link between opening, body, and closing? Let's see. How the segments transition. A story begins with a priming. What is priming? Can anyone tell me?
Preparing.
Sensitizing. To
The
arouse
first
curiosity.
layer of painting.
To arouse curiosity and a lot of next questions, like what is next, what is next. So that
expectations.
Curiosity and
Priming is creating the ground for the story to start.
Premise.
Priming is like the farmer plowing the field. He's plowing the field so that the seeds can take root fast and grow well. That is the first part. From there, you transition into the playing field and the context. From there, you move towards the end game. Immediately, you come to the end game. As I told you, trim away everything which is rubbish. You prime the audience, explain the context, enter into the end game. From the end game, you deliver the trigger, which is going to change. From the trigger, you come to the trade-off. The end game will contain the conflict. From there, you create a trigger. The trigger will create the trade-off, and the trade-off will ensure that the takeaway is delivered. The opening consists of priming, playing field, and the takeaway. You must be wondering, how the takeaway can be part of the opening. All of you, you know, you're always told start with the end in mind, right? Am I right or wrong?
Stephen Covey.
Yes, yes. Yes, sir.
Start with the end in mind. So you see, the takeaway is going to be a part of your opening. How that will be, you will see. The second is the body. The cusp of opening and body is a playing field context. That will be a part of the body. The cusp of closing and body is the trigger and change. And then comes the closing, which will be trigger change, trade-off, and takeaway. This is called the story architecture. It starts with priming, moves on to explaining the playing field and the context. From there, we go to the end game. The end game consists of explaining the trigger and the change which is required. The change brings a situation, moves the coin to the trade-off, and from the trade-off, you get the takeaway. Friends, 18 months back, I had posted this video in YouTube. I'm going to take that video and I'm going to analyze it along with you, and we will see what, message is there about storytelling in this video. Is it okay with you?
Sure, sir.
Yes, of course.
There will be all the segmentation. Now watch the video.
So as not to wake anyone up, I opened the door and looked out into the hallway. Scooby, our German Shepherd.
You can't hear the audio.
Audio is not audible.
Sound is very low.
Just a minute. Sound is very less, is it?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
It is in the full.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
So
Check,
you can share computer sound from the options.
Yes, it is shared.
Play, sir. Let us see.
You play the video, sir. Let's see.
Optimize for video clip.
You played, sir. We'll see.
Just a minute.
So as not to wake anyone up, I opened the door and looked out into the hallway. Scooby, our German Shepherd, was lying there. He lifted his head, cocked an eyebrow at me, as though asking, and then, Arun, where are you off to at this unearthly hour? I tiptoed to the door, opened it, and silently stepped out into the calm pre-dawn air. Everything was silent. It was so peaceful, so nice, so blissful. I did a few stretches and ran out into the streets, onto the main road. There was not a car, not a cycle, not even a pedestrian. Everything was peaceful. And there was a gentle...
I can't hear, sir.
So carrying away all the concern and worries with it. I was enjoying this bliss.
Is no one able to hear it?
Can hear, sir.
No, sir. We can hear, sir.
We can hear, sir. We can hear.
We are able to hear.
Sir, kindly continue. Some lot of us can hear.
No,
It's not
sir.
understood.
Not audible. Could not hear.
You can narrate it. You can please narrate it.
So could hear with a headphone.
Please, calm down. Be silent. You will be able to hear.
Out into the hallway. Scooby, our German Shepherd, was lying there. He lifted his head, cocked an eyebrow at me, as though asking, and then, Arun, where are you off to at this unearthly hour? I tiptoed to the door, opened it, and silently stepped out into the calm pre-dawn air. Everything was silent. It was so peaceful, so nice, so blissful. I did a few stretches and ran out into the streets, onto the main road. There was not a car, not a cycle, not even a pedestrian. Everything was peaceful. And there was a gentle breeze blowing as though carrying away all the concern and worries with it. I was enjoying this blissful moment when suddenly there was a massive crash. I jumped up, somehow stopped myself from falling off the bed. My dream rudely awakened. It was a few moments before I could gather my wits and remember where I was. Room number 274, Brocha Hostel. July 5th, 1976.
My first request is please everyone mute so that I can hear background noise that will even make the audio more difficult. Now let us analyze this opening. Do you notice that I do not open my story with introductory remarks? I don't bore my audience with an introduction of myself. I don't bore my audience with background details. How thankful I am that they are ready to listen to me. I immediately dive into the story. The best way you can thank your audience for the opportunity to speak to them is to deliver a speech that keeps them engaged, interested, and involved. Start the story immediately. The first thing we need to remember is that then take the audience along on the journey. Live that moment. Let them come with you. Get them to understand about it. They will wait. They know you will get to the point where the things will become clear. And that is what will make the story interesting. Make it relatable. They should be able to relate to something which has happened in their life. And finally, introduce the surprise element as early as possible. At the earliest possible, put in the surprise element, preferably within a minute. Now we come to the main question. What makes a story gripping? What makes a story gripping is the surprise element, the hook. What is it that hooks us into the story? Why is it that some of the stories have us sitting on the edge of our seats while others make us bored? What mysterious element makes a story gripping? Let the story continue.
274 Brocha Hostel. July 5th, 1976. My first night at BHU. I looked in the direction from where the sound had come. I could see the rattling of my doors. And beyond the door were a group of people. In front of them was, I think, the leader who had kicked the door. He must have been a person of about 5 feet 2, 5 feet 3 of slender build. And he was having that swagger which told me that possibly he was a guy who is normally, when he's alone, very submissive, but when he's with his friends, a big boss. Rage boiling inside, I sat up. As though to confirm my doubt, that person, he let out a sister expletive, following it up with a series of utterly rubbish cuss words, ordered me to come out. As I was getting ready to move, I remembered the words of Monadi. She had cautioned me not to get into any scraps. I could not but admire her, that she could foresee what was going to happen. I got up. 3 steps brought me in front of that person. And before I could realize, I had delivered a strong blow on his face. My fist connected with his nose, making a crunching sound. His nose opened and blood splattered in the people around him and on me. I don't know who was more surprised, he, his friends, or me. It seemed to tell me, welcome Arun to BHU. Now let's see what the hell you are going to do. You have started off a journey in real danger.
Make the story personal. Now you know that it is my story, a story of something I think is important, interesting enough to share. I am sleeping peacefully. and I'm enjoying peace in the sleep. Something happened, which shattered my peace. By enacting the contrast, I create a subconscious desire in the listener to know what caused the crashing sound which broke my sleep. Now the situation has been created to force the audience to take the extreme position. By hitting them, I have brought in a situation where the audience have taken extreme positions. Some think I did right, some think I was wrong in doing this, some are condemning me, some are silently watching. In other words, all of them have got involved in the story. It has aroused the audience's emotion. It has created curiosity and suspense. Each one of them wants to know what happened next. What did I do? I brought the characters alive. How did I do that? It is important to bring the characters alive by providing details of how they look, 5 feet 2, 5 feet 3, sender built. Then I give my judgment. Maybe, when he is alone, he is a very submissive guy, but a big boss type character when he is with his friends. You always want to give the audience sensory information that allows them to create the image, provide sensory information, and then show and tell. Show them and tell what is happening so that the internal representations will be, stimulated. There are 5 senses that we use to experience the world: sight, sound, touch, smell, taste. By providing descriptions that as many of these senses as possible, you help your audience to create a mental motion picture of your character. The true story of this type of story, the true power of this type of story is all these things. That is, first, visual. What did we do in the visual? The vibrating door, the description of the small person, the blood splattering on him, his group members and on me. What is the next is auditory. The crash sound, the sister expletives, string of expletives, cuss words, then crunching sound of the nose, the kinesthetics, falling off the bed, the expression of boiling with rage, fist moving and connecting with the nose. Some who have got very much involved might have even smelled the blood or tasted it in the mouth. Now let us move on. What happens next?
Tell me, welcome Arun to BHU. Now let's see what the hell you are going to do. You have started off a journey in real danger. BHU during those days was a den of gundas and antisocial elements. There were 2 handguns to every head in BHU. One politician had even commented that BHU needs to be closed down for 2 decades if it has to be rid of all its antisocial elements. There were 3 prominent gangs operating in BHU at that time. And Chiranjeevi Bhadodia of Dhanbad, a person supposedly doing his PhD in geology department, was one of the leaders of those gangs. And Vineet Tiwari, the person whom I had hit, was one of his protege. As he was being taken away, there was only one question in my mind. Should I reach out to Monadi for help, or should I stand up and be counted? This decision was going to decide how my stay in BHU will be, and had to be.
Now we have come to the playing field. The setting. First night at BHU, the protagonist in a fit of impulsive rage hits and spills blood. The context. BHU is a den of gundas. The person who was hit is the protege of one of the gang leaders. There are 2 handguns to every head at BHU, meaning it's a very violent place. The reference point. How to stay at BHU. How my stay will be. Safety and respect from the peers was an essential component. Everything was going to be done to achieve these 2 factors. They were the reference point. Whatever I do, I have to ensure that going forward, I am safe for the 3 to 4 years I'm there. I don't make enemies. At the same time, I don't lose respect and I'm not looked down upon. Otherwise, I would have started my, college career with a bad foot. Then comes the ambiguities. Should I go it alone or should I look for help from outside the university? And finally, the uncertainty. I had hit him. I had made the first move. Now he can take eternity to make his move. This had to be answered. The playing field was very simple. The setting, the context, the reference point, the ambiguities, the uncertainties. Let's move on.
To decide how my stay in BHU will be. And had to be there in BHU for at least 3 to 4 years. It was a difficult decision. I sat down, thought about it for some time and decided I will go it alone and see what happens. I went off to sleep. An insistent knocking on the door woke me up the next day. The door was open, but no one had entered it. They had knocked. I could see a group of people standing there. I went to them. They informed me that they are from Babu Sahib, pronounced as Babu Sahib. And that's how Chiranjeevi Bhadodia was addressed in BHU during those days. I requested them for some time to freshen up. I told them, you please go. I'll come and follow you. I took the details from them, but they were not willing. They wanted me to accompany them, but I firmly told them that I will not be able to accompany and that I have got no intention of running away from BHU and that I will come and meet Babu Sahib. For some obscure reason, they accepted my argument and went away. Babu Sahib and Vineet Tiwari were staying at Birla Hostel. Room number 41 Birla Hostel, where they stay, overlooks the main road. There was no furniture in the room. There was a big mattress, and on it were pillows like those which you found in Marwadi Gaddis. When I went there, there were around 30-40 people standing in the corridor. And this boy whom I had hit, who I came to know was Vineet Tiwari, was standing in one corner. I thought that this information is very important. That Vineet Tiwari is in the corner and not inside the room. It indicated that Vineet Tiwari was not a very important member of the gang. Inside the room, there was a person leaning on the pillow, and next to him was a Mauser revolver. Around him were around 5 people. I could understand that the person leaning on the pillow must be Babu Sahib, Chiranjeevi Bhadodia, and I addressed him. I introduced myself and very politely asked him the reason for my being called. Chiranjeevi Bhadodia sneered at me and in a harsh tone asked me in the local language why I had come to Banaras, to study or to do gundagardi. The sizing up had begun. I kept quiet. I had introduced myself in Hindi, but I was a Madrasi. So I knew the obvious questions will follow, and they followed. He wanted to know where I was from, how I came to be in Banaras, how I know the local language so well. And all along, I was standing and he was sizing me up, and his people were sizing me up. Suddenly, he asked me, what punishment do you think I should give you for hitting Vineet Tiwari? I knew the crunch had come. I remembered what Monadi used to tell her people. She used to give the analogy of a swimmer who suddenly finds himself surrounded by killer sharks. She used to say, never break the rhythm. Continue swimming in the same way. The sharks will size you for some time. And if they find you're not easy meat, it is more likely than not that they will swim away. I decided to do the same thing and bluff my way out. I kept quiet.
Great storytelling is much more than what is said and heard. It is also about what is felt, experienced, and desired. You know, we have entered into the end game. This is that point of the story where the audience takes side and then they start desiring and strategizing along with the protagonist. How to get out of this situation? how it will all end. Everyone has got in his mind, what is this guy going to do? Surrounded by these gundas, how can he emerge out of this problem without losing his respect or without being put down? Engaging the people with the important things like the trigger, that which brings about the change, is very, very important. The trigger is the wisdom of the process that the character in your story receives in order to overcome the conflict. What was the wisdom? The trigger? The trigger is Monadi's statement that when a person finds himself in water surrounded by shark, he has to swim without breaking the rhythm. The character must change as a result of the conflict. Because of the conflict of having to overcome. Just imagine the character change as a result of the conflict. There has to be a difference in the character. Otherwise, the circumstances will not change. Now, let us see so far what has been the structure. The character of the protagonist is impulsive, hasty, short-tempered, not averse to taking chances. He's daring and scrappy. Does not think of the consequences. What is the conflict? By hitting a person on the very first evening at BHU, he has precipitated a major conflict with a group of antisocial elements. He is not comfortable with. He finds himself surrounded by pretty dangerous people, killers with revolvers and guns. The trigger comes in the form of that analogy of a swimmer having fallen into the sea. And now the change has to be to maintain and resolve the problem through calm and without breaking the rhythm. Of having given the understanding of being a very tough guy, he has to continue like that without being even a bit scared. Otherwise, the shark will smell blood and it will attack.
You will have to tell me what punishment you deserve. You have sent Vineet to hospital and don't think we are going to let you off. Looking at Bausar, in a very polite tone, I told him, Bausar, you are a Bahubali. You are a strong man. I am in your room surrounded by your people. I am absolutely sure you don't require me to answer what you should do with me. But since you have asked this question, I will tell you what I think. Bausab, I think you have become a Bahubali by making friends and not enemies. And I have come to BHU to study and to make good friends. I would love to be a friend of yours. And as a token of my acceptance of you as my boss and leader, I give you the right to decide what you should do to me. But Bausar, only you should do. If anybody touches me, I am assuring you that I will see to it that that person will leave BHU and go away forever. Today is one day, tomorrow is another day. You have called me to your room. Whatever you say, whatever you do, I accept. I will not talk anything. I take you as my elder brother. And I kept quiet. Bausab looked at me for a few moments. He looked at others. I could see from the corner of my eye that Vineet was standing by the door. Bausab signaled to Vineet to come in. He told Vineet, Vineet, slap him. Vineet gave me a massive slap and I staggered back. Then Vineet took the next step forward. Bausab stopped him. He said, I told you only to slap him once. He hit you once, you have slapped him once, you both are even. I don't want this hostility to be continued. And if it is continued, and if Arun does anything to you after today, don't come to me.
This is the portion of the story called the resolution, where you resolve the problem by redefining the roles of the character. I pointed out to him that I was in his clutch, and his indecision gave me the signal that he had not been able to gauge the extent of my power and reach. He suspected that there were people behind me who were very, very powerful. I indirectly told him that friendship would serve him better than enmity. And then I gave him a face saver by telling him that if he wished so, he could mete out justice within limits I was willing to accept it. The pieces were in place. The climax had been reached. The story moves towards a win-win situation. Villain, that is Vineet Tiwari.
We are lost too, I think.
There's a connectivity problem with Mr. Arun.
Let me call him.
His line got stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, let me call him. Friend just spoke to Mr. Arun. He said he's reconnecting. Kindly bear with us for a couple of minutes. He'll be back.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
DP, is this climax by design?
No, I think he is narrating what has happened in his real time.
But not the
And
climax in
it
the
was-
mind is built
yeah.
up.
It was more
No,
like a
when-
Bollywood movie narration.
Silence
when
will
the
increase our anxiety.
I was just about to say that Salman Khan has been hit, and now what?
No, when the intentions are right, nature favors us on this.
Very true. Yeah.
Arun sir has come.
It relates.
Arun sir has come, please. Arun sir. You can go ahead, sir.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
There's resolution.
You see, the resolution has started. The players have been put into their position. And there is a restructuring of the scenario. Now the protagonist is Babu Sahib and I, Vineet Tiwari, a minor element in the whole thing. You have redefined the player importance for a trade-off. Now the trade-off is friendship between Babu Sahib and me, and Vineet Tiwari is off. Prepare for the final alignment. This has to be put into place.
We couldn't hear the audio of the video.
Just a
sir.
minute, just a minute, just a minute. One of the boys came and asked me to sit down. I sat down on the mattress. I was offered tea. By that time, Vineet had left the room. After a few moments, Babu Sahib said, "You know, Vineet had wanted to take some boys and beat you up." He said this smilingly and jokingly. I did not say anything, I kept quiet. After some time, when it was time for me to leave, I got up. I thanked Babu Sahib for treating a newcomer and a junior so well. And I wished and hoped that our relationship will grow and develop into a good relationship. Before leaving, I asked him, "Can I tell you something, Babu Sahib, if you don't mind?" He smiled and nodded. I told him, "Babu Sahib,
If Vineet Tiwari and his friends try to take revenge, they would have created a hostility which will end only with their leaving BHU. Please tell it to them. I am not looking for trouble, but if it comes to me, I can be a bit trouble myself. Bausa was looking at me with question in his eyes, but smiled, and he said, "Jao, jao, dekh lenge. Don't worry." I turned round and walked away, with 40 piercing eyes behind me looking at me. I could feel their piercing look. I knew that I had left them with a good impression, and in all probability, my stay in BHU will be uneventful from then onwards. Friends, after that I was there from 1976 to 1979, and I had a very happy time. I made hundreds of friends, no enemies.
Now we come to the epilogue. In the end, what did I do? I tied up the loose ends. I wanted to inform him that if the conflict goes beyond today, he should not come into it. I will handle it myself. The boundaries are drawn and the ownership of responsibility is clearly established. With my parting shot and acceptance without animosity, I had regained my position and respect. The scenario had changed. Vineet Tiwari was totally discredited. I had established my position in BHU because I knew it was just a matter of time that everyone would come to know of the incident, and I will no longer be an unknown entity. Without the need to getting introduced to everyone, everyone would know who Arun Subramanian was. It was a happy ending. If I decide not to overplay my hand, with the newfound notoriety, I can be assured of a happy stay at BHU. The story doesn't end here, friends, because the reality distortion is now going to happen.
Friends, consistency is a gateway into the mind of the reptilian brain. Nonverbal cues is a trigger, and negotiation is an element. When I hit Vineet Tiwari, I signaled to them that I was short-tempered, impulsive, and did not think about the consequences. Next day morning, when they came and called me and I refused to go, but still I went afterwards alone, I signaled to them that I was fearless and was willing to take a chance. And my behavior in the room in front of Chiranjeevi Badodia must have convinced them that here is a person.
Please mute. There is noise coming from behind.
And every gang requires hot-headed youngsters to build itself. So maybe they thought of me as a possible gang member. Let us remember, friends, that language as a means of communication came only 150,000 years ago. So what was the reptilian brain doing? How was it understanding the surrounding? How was it communicating for all the rest of the 320 million years? It was to non-verbal cues. And the non-verbal cues which it got from me was, it saw that I was calm, I was collected, I was having an enigmatic smile on my face, and I appeared as though there was something up my sleeve. As a Madrasi, I was not expected to behave that way, but I did. It saw in me a person who was very strong, very tough, and very fearless. Finally, when I showed it the difference between friendship and enmity, and while leaving, when I told Chiranjeevi Badodia that if Vineet Tiwari and his friends try to take revenge on me, I will see to it that they are driven away from BHU. I indirectly showed the consequences, the risks and benefits of such a behavior to the reptilian brain, and it found that the risk and the benefit did not balance. Consistency, non-verbal cues, and negotiation saved the day for me.
Come, friend. Start with the end in mind. The story was told as a prelude to my mega program, Who Are You Talking To? I wanted to show just one gateway, one trigger, and one element of the reptilian brain. A story is never complete without the purpose being made clear. This should covertly or overtly be done in the end that will ensure that the loop is closed and the retention of the message is assured. Structure. Do you remember? We were talking about order from chaos. Chisel away all the information which will load the story without adding value. Practice minimalism. Minimalism is what makes the story that much more interesting. And finally, allow the most essential and the secondly most important thing, profluence, that is move forward. Constantly the story is moving forward. And finally, the takeaway. Ensure that covertly or overtly the objective of the story is clear. Here, the objective was to show how the reptilian brain works. The story was not about me. The story was about the reptilian brain and how it works. And the story was used to drive an introductory webinar video to pull people for Who Are You Talking To? Remember one thing, friends. First to come on land 360 million years ago is the lizard brain, the reptilian brain. It is the master. It controls everything. Don't ever forget that. Once it got overloaded, it started growing. You know, we saw fire brought in food and cognitive overload. Storytelling, analysis, conflict, negotiation, agreement, all these came when people had extra time. Otherwise, all the time they were busy running for food and trying to survive. When they had extra time, they started socializing, cognitive overload, the brain started growing. The next to come was the mammalian brain, which is the limbic system. When the limbic system started getting overloaded, then, came about, this limbic system came about 150 million years ago. 360 million years ago was the mammalian, the reptilian brain. 150 million years ago was a limbic system. And just about 1.5 to 2 million years ago came the human brain, that is the cerebral cortex. Don't think that a cerebral cortex will be able to, which is just 2 million years old or something like, 2 seconds old, will be able to tell us what to do. It is the reptilian brain which does. Based on this, there are 5 different types of stories. We will stop here. What we will do is, we will go into a breakout room. I want to create groups of 109 people are there. Let us make about 10 rooms. There we are at 12:40. Go into the breakout room. Write a story incorporating all these things. Should we try that?
Yeah, can try.
Yes. Huh? You see, in the post-lunch, we will do the rest.
Yes, sir, we will do.
How many of you are game for it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. We will do, sir. We will do. Narendra.
Yes, sir.
Okay, assign automatically. Let me make it into 11 breakout rooms. Okay, 10 people each into each of these breakout rooms. Go in and write a story, come back, and each one of you will get 2 minutes to tell that story. See if you can create all these elements. Yes, all of you can join. The rooms have been created.
Stories to be written by individuals about them.
No, all of you together, you can create the stories.
Okay.
Yes, each group will present a story. Please move fast. Let us not waste time. In the post-lunch session, we have got lots more to do. Professor Kabali, are you not joining the rooms? Room number 2 join कर लीजिए रोमिता जी.
Arun, sir.
Has everyone come?
Almost 97 people have joined back, sir.
Total 109 went into the room.
One room.
What did you people do to the others?
One room.
Don't tell me.
Other doors.
No,
One room people.
Stories killed them.
No, what has happened to you in your story that has happened
the
to all
stories were
the
so nice and practicing.
Still, some people are creating stories.
Yeah, this is like
Our
pretty
discussion
the
went on and on, sir. Story did
Story
not
not
come.
yet ready, sir.
No, I
Story
think
not yet ready.
no, it has become a Banaras
Story
story.
ready. How to tell inspiringly? That is a problem.
No, not that.
Story is ready.
Really, but don't tell me the 10 people who are missing are the one who tried to do it expiringly.
The 10 have gone to BHU, sir.
Mr. Arun has given a daunting task which he has learned in say more than 30 years, 40 years. He just said us do it in 10 minutes.
Okay. What we will do is we will hear the stories after lunch. Okay.
Okay.
But
Okay.
here
And
now every team will take 1 minute and tell me their experience inside the room in creating this story.
Yes.
Okay, before we do that, Arunji, just a quick question.
Yeah.
This task that we did in the breakout room, is each and everyone supposed to narrate their own story?
One story for the entire group. Don't worry, Tasneem ji. By the end of today, I will teach you 10 different story frames which the reptilian brain will immediately identify.
Okay.
Writing a story, creating a
Great, sir.
story, creating a story and narrating a story comes naturally to human beings.
So one question,
Yes.
can we use a story which already has been told before, or should it be a real life story?
What is real, what is unreal? The reptilian brain does not know.
Doesn't know anything.
Whatever story you tell, the reptilian brain will believe. That is how marriages are surviving.
Sharing the secret of life.
That is the secret of life. Because see, marriages are surviving only because the reptilian brain cannot differentiate between truth and lie.
It is negotiable, sir. Everything is negotiable, sir.
Please do negotiate. I've got no problems. Don't do it.
Sir, all are telling stories, sir.
Okay, now one by one, let us start in an ascending order. We'll start with team number 1. Team number 1, your leader can come and tell us what are the difficulties he faced in that creating that story. Yes, team number 1. Who is it?
Hi, this is
Yeah,
Suresh.
tell. Instead of waving, speak.
Yeah. So in our group, initially we decided the outline of the story. So we'll choose one concept. So it's going to be a crime story. And there were some conflicts and all. Then we came to the outer structure of the story. Then I was chosen to present to the group. I was doing it in a sort of emotional way. Then one of our group members, Suresh Ramadastan, suggested you come out with more effects actually, with more sound effects, and then there's some all the 5 elements should be there. So we developed a story further. It went on well. So I've been chosen after the lunch. I think I will be able to do it.
Okay, practice it during lunch. You have got till now. What we will do is, since we are going to be breaking only at 1:30, we will reconvene at 3:30 instead of 3. Is it okay?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yes. 3:30 to 5:30. Okay. 3:30 to 5:30 is okay with everybody?
Yes,
sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. If anybody has an objection, please tell now.
No, 3:30 is fine. 5:30 we'll open.
Okay.
Now we start the storytelling or after post lunch only?
After 3:30, we will have 15-20 minutes of each one of you will tell the story. Then we will move with the rest of the program, and there is other activities also. Yeah. Okay. Now team number 2. Who is team number 2?
Yes, sir. We started with the concept. Yes, sir. We started with the concept, and we came up with various topics that we wanted to talk about, and we wanted to build the story around. So we started with the COVID situation, and then the VUCA situation in the COVID, and then the innocence and the ignorance that could happen, during this whole phase of time. And then we also came up with an issue of trust is a must, and then how to build resilience during this COVID. So everyone wanted to go back to this COVID thing. So then after that, we came up with a story. And we were initially, what was happening is that the mind is again going back to being, the same person, where we just relate situations as if, like, there's no story behind it really. So then again, characters were brought in, and then we thought about Ekta Kapoor and the serials, and the drama, and the mischief, and the meanness. And then there were some people who were going back to their old methods of, no, he was a very good father and he had a very nice business. And then there were others who had to remind people that nice people's stories don't sell. If you want to really sell, you've got to bring in the drama, the twist, and the meanness, and the conflict, and then only think about resolution. The reptilian brain, either you run, you freeze, or you fight. So unless and until there is no fight, or there is not running away. And in COVID, there was no way to run out. So that was a big problem. So we came up with all that, and then we came up with characters. And everyone suggested that this mean character, who is actually the father, who's even 19 years married with Anamika, he is, having an affair with another woman.
Okay, we will hear the full story afterwards. We just wanted to know
So we
what is
wanted
the...
to name the character Arun. So is it
Good.
okay with you?
You can name him anything. That poor guy will suffer. Why should I worry?
This is how it happened. And there's, so then we came up with the characters in the whole thing. And then
the name Arun, what it signifies? It signifies the sun. It is likely to burn away everything. That is one of the qualities of that name. Watch out. You are putting your character in danger.
It is not only light, it is the heat also.
Yeah.
We are going to see how that character is going to resolve everything, and get
Yes,
into
we will
the
hear
part of-
all this in
Thank you,
full
sir.
detail after the lunch. Number 3.
Sir, number 3, Narendra here.
Yeah.
So we were struggling to start with any story. We were 6 people, all we kept quiet for quite some time, and nobody was starting. Then Nagireddy sir suggested that I should tell some story of my life. So I started narrating an incident which really happened. It is a friendship.
You tell me
story.
what are the difficulties you people face there. I don't want to know the other things.
It was big
Sir.
starting problem, sir.
Okay,
Otherwise
big
nothing.
starting problem. Okay.
Sir, can I
Now,
ask?
only thing is,
Mr.
you see, I want only within 1 minute, what are the difficulties you faced?
Sir,
Because
had
we
a
will be
problem.
addressing that only after this. Yes.
Sir, we want a little clarity on trade-off.
You want clarity on trade-off.
Yeah, in this story, I could place all that in the respective elements. Only in trade-off, I couldn't place it a little. Maybe
You have
a
to give
little-
in something to take something. For instance,
is
the
that-
trade-off in this case was, I gave in to become a subordinate to Bau Sahib. I said, I accept your leadership. In return, what he will have to do? He will have to ditch Vineet Tiwari. That was an indirect thing I told, isn't it? When I
Yes,
told him,
yes.
and that is what ultimately
Right.
happened. He had to save his face, so he told Vineet Tiwari to slap me. And he knew that is not going to make much of a difference because I had broken his nose. By slapping, he can do nothing. And when he stepped forward, he stopped him and showed me that he is with me. So Vineet got ditched, and then they told me to sit down, offered me tea and other things. We chit-chatted for some time, and then I came off as friends. No, Vineet was totally discredited. So you see, that is a trade-off. In everything you will find, there is a trade-off. The father who is against the daughter-in-law coming into the house, ultimately trades off and allows her to come in. And she goes, what is the trade-off here? She will go and touch that father-in-law's feet and take his blessings. She accepts him as the boss. He accepts her as a daughter.
1 minute. Huh?
Yeah.
It's Reddy sir, trade-off is allowing him to sing with me, which created a pain for me.
Yeah, we will discuss it after.
That we will
Thank you,
discuss
sir.
afterwards.
Thank
Now,
you. Thank you.
okay, you trade-off is something you give to get something.
Yeah.
In every story in life, you will find it is always a compromise.
Yes.
We
The
got it.
trade-off, with the trade-off, the climax ends.
Yes, sir, correct.
Yeah, team number 4.
Guys, that is our
We
team.
started within 30 seconds. We were able to start with the story directly. The team started with the story of how she had evolved without giving the prelude. So she started with the crisis, how the situation emerged, and how that transformed her. And after the story ended, she says, let us see whether all the components have been addressed. So while we were addressing, then we said, why not have another story in which perhaps the components have been addressed and then see whether we have understood the concept or not. So in this process, we had actually 2 complete stories. And in the end, we said, okay, whether the contexts are being matched or not.
Very good. Excellent. Number 5.
Sir, actually, there was some confusion in team number 5. One of the members thought that each of us have to tell our own stories. And so we began. One person told a story with a moral, which is a children's story. And one person, 2 people told their own life stories. But actually, we were just we wasted most of our time just narrating the stories because this is what that person felt, and he insisted that everyone has to give one story each. So because of which, we came to a blank, but we do have a story where that's what I wanted to ask, a personal experience. So since we have not built the story, it is a personal experience, and can we use that story?
As you wish.
Yeah.
No issue for me.
Yeah.
Okay, number 6. Number 6.
Yeah, this is Rajendra. Let me start. I think we initially there was a silence, but in another actually 30 seconds or so, I think two of the members, they shared their personal stories, and then we selected the one which we thought was more dramatic or from that angle. There are 2 possible improvements I think needed. One is that, is it possible to share the screen within the group actually, because then
That is not possible, Mr. Narendra.
No, it's not possible. No?
That is
Okay.
not that.
Okay. So we have to identify for remaining sessions some other ways to, create some kind of individual team-wise dashboard actually, maybe outside of Zoom actually, I'm saying. But otherwise, the time actually elapses very fast actually. That within 10 minutes, how to?
Oh no, not 10 minutes. We are 25 minutes.
Oh, is it? That means.
Then what? We are given 25 minutes.
Absolutely crazy actually. I mean, I'm sorry. We lost the time.
You see, you went in at 11:50 and you came out 11:50. You came out by 12:50 and you came out by 1:15. Okay.
Yeah.
So
But, thank you.
Number 7.
Yeah. Somebody can speak.
Number 7.
Lakshmi ma'am.
Lakshmi ma'am.
I think your leader is missing.
Okay, fine. I'll come in, sir.
Yeah, who is it?
Ajit.
Please. Mr. Mohan, please focus him now.
No, he has to start his video. I'm focusing everyone. He has to start his video. Yeah, now I'll focus.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm stepping in. As a group, what we decided is that there was, of course, a silence for the first few minutes, wondering what to do, how to do. And then we came to a conclusion that, okay, we will take somebody's personal experience and then build it around. So we took Lakshmi ma'am's recent experience, which she had, and we built the story around that. So the story is ready with her, which she can probably after lunch, she'll come and present it.
Okay. Then number 8.
Hello, sir. So
Please, all of you mute. There is lot of noise coming in. It is disturbing the other participants. Please. Yes.
hello, sir. In our group, just like other groups, we took some time to start. And then we wanted to cook up our own story. We found a theme, we built in our characters, but something we found was there was no element of surprise, and we couldn't end it up with with an interesting ending. So that part was really challenging. We didn't know how to make the story we created interesting. So we again started all over from first, and we wanted to create an interesting story. We got the theme, and boom, the time was over. So we really want some insights on how to make it interesting. And
so the beginning and the ending, starting trouble and stopping trouble.
Yes.
There is this joke about, in the India-Pakistan war, Pakistan ran short of pilots because of all of them being shot down. So what they did is, Yahya Khan or whoever was the general at the time, he went to the fields and caught a few shepherds, brought them and put them in a plane. And he told them, see, all that you need to do is press this red button and the plane will take off and everything. Then when you are above Bombay or Ahmedabad, you just press this green button, the bombs will drop. And then you turn this, thing, that flight will turn. He'll stop there. They said, sir, but how do we get down? He said, you don't worry, the Indian gunners will take care of that. It is something like that.
Yes, sir. Very true.
Okay, number 9.
Sir, I am Nagaraj Kumar.
Yes, Mr. Nagaraj.
We had very, very smooth.
Can you please unmute your video so that you can get focused?
Yeah, 1 second.
Yes.
See, we had a very, very smooth situation, like a well-oiled machine. It was a 7-member group. The moment I offered, can I tell? Everybody said, okay. I could narrate a personal story. And all the people, it was so nicely composed of well analytical people, all could contribute that how it fits into the frame of story fitting of each of the elements described by you. And finally, they could rehearse. Everything was fitting logically and correctly. So we have a good story ready.
Excellent, excellent. We would love to hear.
There is one more story. I am listening from 1:30 a.m. I am tuning from US. So it's a real challenge to. I was wondering whether I could wake up for the full thing, but your session was so absorbing that not having the sleep was not a problem at all. So
which part of US you are logging in from?
It's New Jersey, Eastern
New Jersey.
Time.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So when the session at 11 a.m. to India, I am 9.5 hours back. It's 1:30 a.m.
My son is in New Jersey, incidentally.
Oh, very nice, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I can see the great eagle.
Yeah, yeah.
Very nice having you, Mr. Nagaraj Kumar. We will, okay, you are losing a night's sleep. I'm very sorry for that, but I'm happy that you are enjoying yourself.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Number 10, please.
Sir,
who is it?
Suma, sir.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
With our group, we were very clear that end in mind, what we want to do. So it was easier to buy the audience and tell that we want to sell a program. That was very clear. And we started with the hook, the priming. Then we came with the context. And we said that is a trade-off. And we ended why they have to join a program which will make them become you or become themselves. So the whole idea was structured and it was very quick. And audience were ready to take whatever we were discussing.
Thank you. Excellent. Yes, number 10.
So this is number 10, sir.
Okay, 11.
Yeah, Suraj here, Suraj Jagdale.
Yes, Mr. Suraj.
Yes. So initially we wasted our 5 to 8 minutes. Who will start first? So there was silence in the group for almost 5 to 7 minutes of the initial period. Then somebody started with, and there was another question that which story to take and how to start. So we just were around that. And I started with my story. So I narrated, not storytelling. I narrated my one story, and that was picked up. And then we thought on the different elements of the structure. How to do the opening, the middle structure and end, and what should be the takeaway from that, and how to add the emotions. So we almost are ready with the story, with the same story which I narrated, with some finer elements.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Suraj. Now what we will do is 1:30. We will log out now, then get back at 3:30 sharp, and we will take the program forward. Thank you, friends. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Of course.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Thank you very much. Very much.
Very, very nice.
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
See you at 3:30, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just 1 minute. Team number 4, who is going to say the story? Is it Atul or me?
I can say. I can speak.
Okay,
So-
great.
So Tasneem can have her lunch peacefully.
Yeah.
Both of you are stars, man, and both of you are looking after Monday and Thursday. What else do you want in your group? My God, awesome. I
am in
really envy
Tasneem's
you
group.
all. Huh? I know. Chandrasekhar ji, I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much for being.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Let's have our lunch. Bye-bye.
We'll meet at 2:45 again.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Naik and Ms. Subbaraju and the team have a lunch. Maybe at 3 o'clock we'll get into the Concord before we get into the session. Thank you.
Amazing, Nagi sir. We know how the story is going to get spilled up. Eagerly looking forward to it.
Mohan, can we end the session now so that we can come back again at 2:45? I mean,
Yeah.
3:15. 3:15. Sorry.
Yeah.
3:15. The session
We'll
starts
add
at
to that
3:30.
story of what Mohan Raj
Yeah,
is
we
saying.
will-
Otherwise, these guys will be talking and chatting and chatting. So end the show.
Switch off the
there's a
fan
message.
immediately.